People burst into laughter when a dusty old pickup truck slowly rolled onto the runway, and out stepped a grease-stained mechanic named Marcus Lane. He had been called in to fix a billionaire's private jet, but no one there imagined he would even lay a hand on the aircraft, let alone actually repair it. While the executives mocked him from behind the glass of the terminal, one woman remained silent, carefully observing everything. Isabella Rowe, the striking owner of the jet. Within minutes, she would cross the runway, stop everything, and ask a question that would shock the entire world. Before we begin, like this video and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring even more powerful stories. Did you know that a lot of people are making more money than you? Even though they know far less, what's the difference? They learned how to sell their own knowledge online. That's why we created the method Turn Your Skills into Online Income, to show you how to take what you already know and turn it into money in a simple, fast, and uncomplicated way. You don't need to invent anything new. Just learn how to package your knowledge the right way for the internet. Click the link in the video description and learn how to sell what you already know online. Now let's begin. People burst into laughter when a dusty old pickup truck slowly rolled onto the runway, and out stepped a grease-stained mechanic named Marcus Lane. He had been called in to fix a billionaire's private jet, but no one there imagined he would even lay a hand on the aircraft, let alone actually repair it. While the executives mocked him from behind the glass of the terminal, one woman remained silent, carefully observing everything. Isabella Rowe, the striking owner of the jet. Within minutes, she would cross the runway, stop everything, and ask a question that would shock the entire world. It was exactly 6:47 a.m. when Marcus arrived at Westbrook International Airport. The sky still held the purples of dawn, and the wind pierced through his worn-out flannel shirt. His boots crunched against the tarmac with each step, louder than the distant rumble of engines. He had received the emergency call just before sunrise. Jet failure. Urgent. No extra details, no context. Just an address and the promise of fast pay. The private jet stood in the distance like a silver beast, surrounded by polished men in navy suits, shiny shoes, and designer coats. They glanced up briefly as Marcus approached, then returned to their laughter. One leaned toward another, whispered something, and both burst out laughing again. Marcus didn't flinch. He knew their kind well. Boardroom brilliance with zero engine sense. What mattered now was the aircraft. Lives could be at stake. He dropped his toolbox beside the jet, opened the engine panel, and froze. What he saw nearly took his breath away. The fuel line was cracked. Not just cracked, melted. The insulation was gone. The clamp was corroded, and fuel was leaking dangerously close to the ignition coil. Whoever had last touched that engine should never be allowed near a plane again. One spark, and that jet would have exploded midair. Marcus knew he had minutes, not hours. With no backup, no assistant, and no time for explanations, he rolled up his sleeves and got to work. His hands moved with the precision of someone who had spent a lifetime fixing engines in barns, along highways, and under the scorching Georgia sun. The airport staff watched him in disbelief. Some recorded him on their phones. He felt the weight of their stares like heat on his back, but he didn't stop. Inside the terminal, Isabella Rowe followed every movement. She said nothing while her team chuckled. She wasn't just a high-level executive. She was a legend in the aviation industry. Her father had founded Rowe Aviation from scratch, and she had turned it into an empire. She knew planes. She had flown them, built them, raced them, and what she saw outside left her speechless. She leaned closer to the glass, narrowing her eyes. Who was that man with grease-covered hands and worn jeans, moving with the precision of a surgeon? Why was he the only one who noticed what her highly trained pilots had missed? Then the jet's lights flickered. A soft hum pulsed through the fuselage like a heartbeat restarting. The aircraft was alive again. Isabella held her breath. She stood up slowly, her gaze locked on the man outside. Everyone else saw a mere mechanic. She saw something entirely different, and in less than 3 minutes, she would walk out onto the runway and change both their lives forever. The moment the jet roared back to life, the laughter died. The executives behind the glass froze, their smug smiles disappearing as the hum grew steadier and stronger. One of them muttered, "That should have taken hours." But Marcus had already closed the engine panel. He didn't celebrate. He didn't boast. He simply wiped his hands on a worn cloth, slung the tool bag over his shoulder, and turned to walk away. That's when the aircraft door opened. The steps descended slowly, each click echoing like thunder across the silent runway. A pair of heels touched the metal, black, elegant, commanding. Isabella Rowe descended with the grace of someone born into power. But something in her eyes had changed. It wasn't the gaze of a woman used to getting everything. It was curiosity, sharp, focused, unshakable. Marcus stopped when he saw her walking toward him. She wore a tailored navy suit with gold buttons, her hair pulled back. Her stride was confident. With every step she took, the suited men behind her shifted uncomfortably. She passed by them without a word. Past the engineers, past the staff who had been laughing just moments before. She walked straight up to the man covered in engine grease, and the world seemed to hold its breath. "You fixed it," she said calmly. Marcus blinked. "Yes, ma'am." "No, you saved it. My pilot told me the engine was too far gone to repair, that we'd have to ground it for a week." He didn't see the melted fuel line. It was about to touch the ignition coil, Marcus replied, brushing dust from his shirt. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in realization. "You could have just walked away." "I don't walk away from a fire hazard." There was a moment of silence. Then Isabella smiled. Not the kind rehearsed in boardrooms, but one that came from somewhere deeper. It was small, honest, and it caught everyone watching by surprise. "Do you know who I am?" she asked. "I do. Isabella Rowe. Rowe Aviation. And you're not impressed?" "I'm not here to be impressed. I'm here to solve a problem." She studied him for a moment, then turned to her team. "Everyone inside." Now no one dared protest. The terminal doors clicked shut behind them. Now it was just the two of them on the runway. Runway. "I've spent my whole life surrounded by men who promise too much and deliver too little," she said, her voice now softer. "You were the first to do the exact opposite." Marcus gave a slight nod. "I was just doing my job." Isabella took a deep breath, as if about to make a decision that could change everything. She looked up at the sky for a moment, then back at the man who hadn't just saved her jet, but perhaps her life too. She stepped closer. "And what if someone like me," she began carefully, "asked you something completely insane?" Marcus didn't move. "That depends. How insane? What if I asked you to marry me?" For a moment, silence fell between them. The wind whispered across the empty runway. A bird took flight from a nearby pole, and Marcus, wearing torn jeans, boots stained with fuel, and fingers darkened by grease, looked at the billionaire in front of him with the calm of a man who had nothing to lose and everything to gain. He didn't laugh. He didn't hesitate. He just stood there, eyes locked on hers, as if trying to understand the question behind the question. Most men would have stumbled over their words, made a joke, or tried to act cool. But not Marcus. He had spent too long fixing what others had given up on. He knew how to tell noise from meaning. And this wasn't noise. Isabella waited. Her face was unreadable, but her unsteady breathing revealed the weight of her own words. She wasn't used to waiting, but she stood there, silently hoping that the man in front of her wouldn't treat it like a punchline. Marcus wiped the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. "You don't even know who I really am." "That's exactly why I'm asking." He raised an eyebrow. "Come again." She stepped even closer, her heels clicking on the concrete like a countdown clock. "I've been proposed to 23 times. I counted. Men in suits who memorized my net worth and called it love. But you," her voice faltered for a second, "you walked into this chaos with a wrench, saved my jet, risked your life, and asked for nothing in return." "I didn't do it for you," Marcus replied. "I did it because someone had to." "Exactly," she whispered. "That's what makes it real." He looked down, suddenly aware of the grease on his hands and the frayed collar of his shirt. "You really want to marry a mechanic?" I want to marry the only man here who didn't try to impress me." Behind them, the terminal lights lit the early evening. A few faces peeked through the glass, whispers spreading like wildfire. There were almost certainly cameras recording, but Isabella didn't care. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't performing. She was just being. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. Are you serious? Serious as a heart attack. He studied her for a moment. Not the clothes, not the title, just the person. Then, take off your shoes. Isabella frowned. What? If you're serious, take off your shoes. Come walk with me. 5 minutes. No titles, no headlines. Just two people on the same ground. She hesitated for only a second. Then, balancing on one foot, she slipped off a heel, then the other. Barefoot on the still, warm concrete, Isabella Rowe followed the mechanic into the sunset. They walked past the jet, past the shadows of silent staff, and she never asked where they were going. She simply followed him, step by step, matching his pace with serenity. Marcus led her to the edge of the airfield, where old hangars stood like slumbering giants. He pushed open the rusted door of one and gestured for her to enter. Inside, it was nothing like she had expected. No machinery, no turbines under repair, just a folding table, a worn-out chair, and walls covered with old photographs, airplanes, mechanics, and a boy in overalls beside a smiling man who resembled an older Marcus. My father built his life fixing engines, Marcus said softly. I watched him restore aircraft everyone else had written off. When he passed, this hangar became mine. I keep the lights off because dreams, to me, don't run on electricity. They run on resilience. Isabella slowly turned on her heels, absorbing each image, each silence, as if reading a diary aloud. The men you've dealt with before only wanted your throne, Marcus continued. I don't care about that. But if what you're offering is something real, then don't expect champagne toasts or fireworks. Expect calloused hands, 3 a.m. repairs, and dinners atop toolboxes. Isabella let out a calm smile. That sounds right. For the first time, Marcus smiled back, not out of charm, but because he believed her. Outside, the wind was picking up, but inside that hangar, everything remained suspended in time. The next morning, the first rays of sunlight streamed through the stained glass like golden rivers. Isabella sat cross-legged on the concrete floor, wearing Marcus's oversized flannel shirt and holding a chipped mug of coffee. Her elegant dress, now folded beside her, seemed almost irrelevant. In that moment, she was no longer a magnet. She was simply someone finally breathing freely. Marcus, on the other side, with a wrench in hand, spoke without taking his eyes off the engine before him. You really stayed. I said I would. Most would have called a driver and rushed to a 5-star suite. I already know what 5 stars have to offer, Isabella replied with a slight smile. But I wanted to know what it's like to be with you at 5 in the morning. Marcus let out a restrained laugh. It's noisy, smells like grease, and starts with bitter coffee and cold feet. She raised her mug as if proposing a toast. To cold feet, then. But the world outside continued its course. News spread quickly. A billionaire had disappeared. Her jet missed its schedule. Security footage leaked, and her name was all over the networks. No one knew where she was, not even her closest advisors. And what made it all more intense was the rumor that someone had seen her walking barefoot across the runway alongside a man covered in oil. At Rowe Aviation's headquarters, chaos reigned. Thomas Baring, the operations director and Isabella's loyal advisor, was furious, leading the meeting with a raised voice. This is unacceptable. The press is outside, shareholders are freaking out, and the board has already called for emergency sessions. A young executive cautiously spoke up. What if she's just choosing love? Thomas scoffed. She's a Rowe. Rows don't chase romance. They build legacies. But someone at that table, Isabella's godmother, a sharp-eyed lady named Madeline, remained silent. She had seen her grow up among luxurious walls, but had also witnessed hidden tears, empty birthdays, rehearsed laughter, and now Isabella was finally improvising her own script. Madeline brought the teacup to her mouth and hid, beneath her eyes, a rare and sincere smile. Meanwhile, at the airfield, Marcus and Isabella were together, working on the fuselage of an old Cessna he had been restoring for years. No talk of business, headlines, or crises, just grease, gentle banter, and exchanged glances. The hands that once signed million-dollar contracts were now dirty with oil, and she loved it. In the late afternoon, a black SUV stopped at the gate. Marcus paused, tense. Isabella stood up calmly. She recognized the driver. It was Thomas. He exited the car with a rehearsed posture, as if heading to a courtroom. "Miss Rowe, what a relief to see you well." "Thomas," she said, wiping her hands on a cloth. "What are you doing here?" "The world is collapsing. Your jet is delayed. The media is going crazy. I came to escort you back to your reality." She gave a polite smile. "You mean your version of it?" His eyes focused on Marcus. "Who is he?" Marcus stepped forward, serene. "The guy who prevented her plane from exploding." Thomas let out a dry, corner-of-the-mouth laugh. "And now you think that gives you a place by her side?" Isabella's voice lowered in tone, sharp and calm. "I don't need permission to choose who stands beside me." Thomas still tried to compose himself. "There are investors watching, Isabella. Image to uphold. You're a Rowe." "No," she replied, approaching. "I'm Isabella, and for the first time, I'm going to act like it." Thomas opened his mouth but found no words. Isabella turned to Marcus. "Will you come with me?" "To where?" "To show the world I'm not ashamed of the only one who saw me before the last name." Marcus hesitated for just a moment. Then he nodded. She extended her hand, and this time he took it. The hangar doors opened firmly. Cameras flashed in rapid succession, like New Year's Eve fireworks. But Isabella Rowe walked the path with her head held high. Dirty hands intertwined with the mechanics. No makeup, no jewelry, just authenticity. And the world stopped to watch. Under the strong afternoon sun, what lay outside seemed like another planet. Reporters ran, questions were thrown into the air, photos snapped in abundance. But Isabella remained steadfast. Words and judgments didn't matter. Only the man beside her, the only one who saw her beyond the empire, beyond the fortune, the woman behind it all. Thomas was already in the car, watching from afar, fingers drumming with frustration on the steering wheel. He had never seen Isabella like this, so fearless, so free. Years of calculated appearances, executive councils, projections, and charts, all collapsed in a matter of hours. "This is madness," he had said earlier on the phone. "You're going to throw everything away for a mechanic? What about your future? Your name?" But Isabella didn't respond. She knew exactly what he would say. She knew he feared seeing her break the chains. The empire they had built was at stake, but she now understood. She had spent her life building a castle she never wanted to inhabit. It was time to stop pretending. Marcus was by her side, his hands still marked by hard work. He had no fortune, no influential contacts, no impressive cars. But at that moment, none of that mattered. What truly mattered was that Marcus had always been authentic. He never desired her for power or status. He simply wanted her. As they approached the aircraft, Isabella's heart pounded, not because of the media chaos, but because of the rare peace enveloping her. She had never felt so alive. For the first time, she was making a choice for herself. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked in a low voice as they climbed the jet's stairs. She smiled sincerely. "Never been more certain of anything." The aircraft gleamed under the sunlight. The world, with all its hustle, was left behind. Isabella no longer thought about the crowd, the criticisms, the legacy, only about the next step and the many more to come. They boarded. The doors closed with a final sound. The rest, the investors, the spotlights, the expectations, would have to wait. She had ceased to be a prisoner of the name she had carried since birth. Now she was free. As the plane gained altitude, moving away from the hangar and her old life, Isabella looked at Marcus. There was serenity on his face, but also a sparkle in his eyes, something she had spent years trying to find. "Destination?" the pilot asked over the intercom. She pondered for a moment. "Wherever life wants to take us," she replied firmly, with a newfound lightness in her soul. Marcus looked at her, and in that exchange of glances both knew. This wasn't just a new chapter. It was a fresh start, and the beginning of the greatest adventure of their lives. Ahead of them, the sky opened up. vast, boundless, like the future. And Isabella knew, without a doubt, she had made the right choice. The world might never understand, but finally she didn't need the world to understand because she had found something infinitely rarer, her own happiness. If you feel like it's time to take a new direction in your financial life, with ease and purpose, we've prepared something special for you. In the video description, you'll find a practical and transformative resource designed to help you start making money from what you already know. This method was created for people who want to earn income without exposure, without complications, and with dignity. Don't miss it. It might be exactly the step you've been needing to start a new chapter with more freedom, recognition, and income.